Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Chaos Creations. Well, it's a Thursday morning. I think it's about 11 o'clock here in Perth, Western Australia. And I want to talk to you about Epic Terrain. Now, the new Legions Imperialis is coming out, and I've decided to print up some terrain for it, which has been interesting because I loved Epic when it came out for normal 40k. I used to play a lot of orcs with big, stompy gargants, absolutely wonderful. And then I moved on to Tyranids with big alien bugs and so forth. But this is going to be the Horus Heresy, and I know nothing, and I mean nothing about the Horus Heresy except for Adeptus Titanicus and big robots. So it's been a bit of a learning curve. Now, before I begin, I want to talk to you that I printed out some little tanks. They're okay, they're a little, that's printed at 0.2, as you can tell by the layer lines. But for me practicing how to paint tanks, it's actually really handy because, like I said, I know nothing about Horus Heresy, and I've never been a Space Marine or Chaos Space Marine player, really. So I've never painted up a tank before in my life, so I had to learn. And it's been a pretty steep learning curve, as you can tell. I suck at painting tanks, and that's fine. I'm learning. But the terrain is where I'm at the moment. So this is some terrain that I printed out. Now, this stuff here is from Warforged Games. Sorry, I had to look behind me just to make sure I got the name right. Essentially, it's the same building in different patterns for the most part. I mean, there's a couple that are slightly different, but for the most part, it's all these little arches in either an L section, a T section, big, tall, thin. But they have do other things as well, like little cathedrals and such, which I've painted up here. And I've added little spots of like green and yellow and orange and so forth, just to make it stand out on the board a little bit different. Same with this piece here. Got a little bit of green in there in places, light green, dark green and such, just to, maybe it's on the board and, people are watching and such, just having a bit of a look. Oh, look, honey, there's a Titan out there. So, yeah, it just adds a little bit. And it's, most of the terrain is like grey and, black and grey and grey. So you want something to liven it up. So I thought about livening up, and I thought, well, I need some more terrain, need something different. And I couldn't find anything really. So I decided that normal terrain, big pieces, that I just shrink down to much smaller pieces. And that's what I've done here. So this is from Forbidden Prints, and this is supposed to be, much bigger. I've shrunk it down to 25%. I did have a print failure, which is a bit of an annoyance at the very top there, but it still works pretty well. So a lot of this stuff is very modular. So, it just, slides in like that, and then we get the other bit here, and it slides in like that, and you can just pop it in your battlefield. Now, it's still pretty big. It's going to block line of sight for maybe some, troops, tanks, and so forth. Warhounds and Reavers and other Titans it's not going to bother about. But it just makes for a nice little terrain. Then I thought, well, now that I've got this other stuff here, what happens if I could, pop it on there? Just add a little extra to the battlefield. So it goes from being a normal, plain and boring house to something with like a water filter on top or an air filter, and this was designed once again modular, so it has a bit that goes in like that, and a bit that goes in there like that, and another bit over here. So it's supposed to be like a big refinery. So I can have it as a refinery by itself, or if I wanted to, I can have it up here. Once again, modular, very handy, really good. And it goes from being a normal just building to looking something in particular. And that can be used as a strategic point. It can be used for something else. Or if you don't want, big funnels, you can go, all right, well, I'll have like a big processing unit up the top there, or down there. Well, almost fits there. And there are a couple of buildings. So, there's all sorts of different options you can have. I do like this stuff. Essentially, it's very similar to a design I did about 2018 when I did things like this. Very similar arches and so forth, big sort of Gothic buildings, very modular and so forth. It never really took off. I've got the file, so I've actually got a lot print somewhere as well. But it's very, very similar to this. This is just a more enhanced version, which I do like. So the idea is, you can put up a block here, and a block there, you know, and have this on the board in like one area, or you can have it really spread out so Titans and so forth can wander around between it, block line of sight as they move around, trying to get the best vantage point, and so forth. So I also found these files, which were on a Colts 3D. Now, it's interesting because it has a little skull on it, and it has some little neon signs and such. It's quite nice. I've printed this at 0.2. It's come out a little grainy, but for what it is, it's not bad. It took about 4 hours to print, and this is, I think, 25% bigger than what it's supposed to be, so I just wanted to be a bit more big and gothic. And I was also printing it at 0.2, so I wanted to see. Now, all of my terrain is printed at 0.2. So what I might do is I'll might reprint this at 0.1. I like the skull idea. I mean, imperial stuff, you know, big gothic skulls on things, you know, huge symbols and chains and so forth. That's, you know, Warhammer in essentially a lot of ways. So I think what I'll do is I'll reprint this at 0.1 and go from there. Now, there are some other pieces of terrain. Now, most of it's away, but I've got some bits like this, which are just like turrets and so forth. And I'll just place them on the battle. They don't actually have to fire, but they just look big and impressive and gothic just sitting there, you know, on a battlefield, you know, and I have tanks moving around it, blocking my sight. For mostly, I'd say, Warhounds and Reavers, not Warlords. Warlords are just going to knock this thing over like crazy. But, you know, in a game where you may need like an orbital, you know, bombardment and so forth, and your job is to blow it up and so forth, I got one, you know. Just as much as I can, you know, pop that out there and say, you know, well, that's, you know, the industrial center that you have to blow up, and it's in a city of, you know, other bits and pieces, and you've got to get to it and such, and you've got to shoot it down, whatever, blah, 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 blah. It just makes the terrain look a little different. I mean, everyone likes to see, you know, the big standard boring blocks, grey and so forth, but why, when you can change up a little bit and put different things there, make it a bit more fun, make it a bit more crazy, you know, and you can just alternate what you want, and it just adds a whole new flavour to itself. You know, it's just a lot of fun. I mean, I had all sorts of ideas for bits of terrain and so forth, this, that, and the other, but realistically speaking, things like the cathedral, you can't modify that. It's just going to be a cathedral. It's just going to sit on the board like a cathedral. This stuff, at least I can modify, I can add stuff to the top. And if I really wanted to, I mean, I can do things like, you know, have stuff like banners hanging off the side of this, something like that. I mean, it's going to be hard with all the little windows and such, but it could be an abandoned building and just have a banner hanging off it and such. Just different ideas to make a board pop. I mean, you want a nice board, and you want great terrain, and you want fantastic miniatures, but I think what I'm finding a lot is a lot of people are just going, oh yeah, just a bit of black and a little bit of grey, a bit of white, bang, we're done. And that's it. And you have all these amazing options you can do with terrain to really spice it up. I mean, so this here, if I printed this, I don't know, 50% smaller, it would fit on there. I mean, it almost fits on there perfectly fine now. So imagine if I printed this 75% smaller, you could have this on top of that, and that'd be your orbital bombardment that you have to go block up. So instead of just being on the ground and having guys running in and blowing it up, it's on a building, and you're like, oh, all right, how do we get up there and so forth? So just different ideas. Anyway, this is Chaos signing off. I am going to try to do longer videos. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time at the moment. I am cleaning up the old shop and such. So in between that, I'm doing painting and doing videos. But everyone have a great day. Chaos signing off. And summer is coming, thankfully. So paint will dry quicker, glue will dry quicker, and I'll have some awesome games being set up and played. All right, everyone take care. Chaos signing off. Bye-bye.